Now, our conversation for the next 2 hours is going to look at matters of health, and not just health, but also reproductive health and rights, right?
Yeah.
And looking at our fertility in this country. Now, many people would like to start a family. Many people are unable to start a family for various reasons. And then comes in technology that helps people to conceive when they are not able to conceive directly, assisted conception, and so on and so forth. We have a doctor who's an expert on this, who's going to educate us what this is all about. Dr. Wanjiru Ndegwa, she's an IVF and fertility specialist. Dr. Ari, good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Asante sana. You will take us through a lot of education. But before we do that, we are going to get some bit of education of how you interpret today's quote from Jano.
Nice segue. Anne Frank, that's who's behind this quote today, a Holocaust victim. She once said, "How wonderful it is that nobody needs to wait a single moment before starting to improve the world."
I agree.
You agree?
I agree. Yeah. I mean, it's basically that you as one person, one voice can change the world, can change one person at a time. I mean, even just speaking to somebody and giving them hope, that's enough to change and actually start a revolution, I think.
I love speaking to someone and giving them hope, which I suppose is what you do.
Yeah.
Quite often,
Yes.
right? Someone and giving them hope. Let's start with just that's what I've given. Society has placed expectations on people. You get to a certain age, then it's about time you start your own family. Get out of my house and go start your own home. Then people, either because of age, then there's age of childbirth. We expect start having a small family. And should you get married, the expectation rises and becomes automatic. You got married, you did your wedding. We came for your wedding, tukakula keki last year. Mwaka imepita, wapi watoto? Right?
Yeah.
There's that pressure. So start by painting for us that picture of that pressure, and then come to the picture of those that are able to meet the societal demands, and those that are having difficulty meeting the societal demand, despite them just wanting, not to meet the societal demand, but just wanting for themselves to start a family.
I like that. Before when you were threading, I thought how quickly the conversation changes for na usinilete mtoto hapa. To hata akikuja, by the way.
Yeah.
Mtoto si makosa.
Yeah. It does. 100%.
I think that's very true. I mean, everyone, even before the marriage, even when you're courting, people are already thinking, hey, you think, are we expecting? And I think it's an African thing, but interestingly, it's also a Western thing. I mean, especially now when the population is dwindling, they actually also are very pro having children and are giving their children pressure, or the generation that is able to reproduce pressure. So, I mean, it does happen. There's a lot of pressure. The patients who come to see me, I mean, one of the factors that brings them is that my mother, my mother-in-law, my aunties, everybody's asking me. And interestingly, in our fertility world, we see an upsurge of patients coming a little before Christmas. Why? Because now they're going to go home, there's celebrations, they're going to be asked, hey, I mean, people even touch their stomachs and are like, hey, bado. I mean,
others come to bless.
Yes, others come to give prayer blessings.
Blessings.
The way I'm triggered.
Yes.
I was repeating people.
Yeah, I know. But it's a reality.
Yeah.
It is a reality that, yes, the society does expect us. I even have parents now coming in for their children. And I found that, yes, you will come in to consult, to ask me how do I get them, to come in. So I think there's a lot of pressure. I do feel this generation has changed a little bit. People do not want children, or are saying, well, it's not a big thing. So I think there is more pressure now. Yeah, and we're seeing it.
Now, you're seeing more and more people coming. Does
Yes.
that mean that more and more people want to have a baby and they're unable to get a baby? Or is it that more and more people are now aware of places they can seek help?
I think it's both. It's that there's awareness. It has improved since we started 10, 12 years ago. I mean, now the numbers are coming and people are coming younger. I think that's my happiness, that patients are not waiting till they're 40 years old, 45 years old. Because when we started, that would be the norm. A 45-year-old lady would come in and say, I've been trying for 10 years and now I've come. And I'm like, okay, there's only so much we can do. But now we're having 28-year-olds, 30-year-olds who've been in marriage for a year and are like, okay, this thing is not happening, doc. We need to get tested. And that's awareness. And that's really a good thing because at that age, we can do so much more.
Before Mariam comes in, I know she's about to. I just want to ask now, statistically, officially from government records. I know there is the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. They have the Health and Demographic Survey, the National Population and Development Council. What do we know as the fertility statistics of Kenyans?
I think what we do know that is on paper, but I don't think surveys have been done that are really actually very correct, but they do say that there's an estimate that about 10 to 15% of our population in the reproductive age are struggling to conceive.
What does that mean?
So struggling to conceive means that we've been together, we're under 35, we've been together for, the woman's age is under 35, we've been together for 1 year plus and it's not happening. So that's when we think, okay, there may be a problem. And if you're over 35 as a woman, we say you're struggling to conceive when you're about 6 months into trying to conceive, which means that you're having intercourse on a regular during the ovulation window for the last 6 months. Yeah.
That's over 35 or under?
Over 35 is 6 months. So we
I thought it would be, so if under 35, it's a year.
Yes, it's a longer period of time because, because we don't think there's much wrong. So we want you to come faster for help.
Okay,
if you're older.
Over 35. Okay, I've understood. I've understood that.
So that's a medical term for fertility, for infertility.
Okay, so then the prevalence 10 to 15% is, I think, what we're aware of. Like you said, like data is hard to get. So 10 to 15% is what we're aware of. Let's begin with the main misconceptions around infertility and causes. I think because usually it becomes a blame game, and especially for women, it becomes you're infertile. Even the word itself is like, it's very heavy.
The Swahili and vernacular terms are actually even stronger.
They are.
So the infertility, is more, so that it is a couple disease. So I say, and it is a medical condition, let's just put it there. It is not a social problem, it is actually a medical condition. Because most of the people who are struggling to conceive actually have something hindering natural conception. They just may not know it. And these things could be many. So some patients have, most common reason that we do or people seek help is tubal blockage. So tubal blockage is big. And what the tube is that it's a conduit to where fertilization occurs. So the male gamete, the female gamete have to meet in the tube. And of course, if that doesn't happen, then because the tube is blocked and they can't meet, you will have problems conceiving. So that's the biggest issue. Another issue, female factor issue, is age. We are, whether we like it or not, waiting a little bit too long to make decisions on our fertility goals, and that's causing us to have problems later in life as we want children. Another issue, we're having a lot of other newer diseases. There's endometriosis. There's, in an African population, we have a lot of uterine fibroids that may hinder conception. There are inflammatory issues that are also on the rise. I don't know whether it's diet or environment, but a mix of both factors. There's chronic stress. I will say chronic stress because it does have a factor in fertility, whether we like it or not. So those are just some factors. And then there's the male. And for a long time, yes, as you said, the male was out of the picture. Right. I will start by saying kudos to a lot of men, because now in our clinic we're seeing couples coming. So we're seeing the woman and the man coming, which was not the case. The woman would come and we're dragging this husband to come. I'm even calling him sometimes, please nitie bwana, because he's not going to come unless an authority or a doctor asks him to come. But now men are coming, and what we're seeing is that actually half of the cases are male factor. So it's no longer a woman issue. Yes, we do carry the burden because a lot of times, even with the couples I see, the woman will shield the man.
Right.
Even when it's a male factor, she's not going to go out there and she's being told, why aren't you? You just are about career. You know, she's going to shield her husband, as women do. We're more protective. But yes, 50% are male factors. So it is quite equal on the scale.
Okay. I wanted to go through the causes, and it's good you even touched on fibroids and endometriosis, because it's something we've had a conversation about here before and we want to thread a bit more. I want to talk about age as well, because it's one of those that gets people very sensitive. You know, science doesn't lie, but it sometimes is also a bit of, what should I call it?
Societal
Pressure. Yeah, there's also like that, you know, like, have babies now, or the
science
eggs
with a bit of salt.
With a bit of salt. So what's the real truth? What's the concrete truth? That's it's factual, but not also dramatized.
In terms of age,
in terms
female
of
age.
Yes, female age.
I will be very honest that the sole determinant of whether you get pregnant or not is female age. Because unfortunately, as women, we are born with all the eggs we will ever have. We're not like men. Men are lucky. They produce sperm like
until they
every
die.
second. Women are born with all the eggs we have, and before puberty, a lot get wasted. Yeah. So by the time we're in puberty, we have maybe about 1,000 eggs left to reproduce. They're in our system, so they're undergoing all these bodily changes. So by the time we get to 45, we have very few eggs left. So it is a reality. Our eggs decrease in number, but the other factor that we don't know or really don't realize is the quality reduces. And I think that's the biggest thing, that as we age, because we were born with our eggs, they're in our system, the DNA is undergoing changes all the time.
They're aging as
well. So just like we get gray hair, our eggs are also aging, and therefore the quality, the DNA, the composition changes as well. And that's why when you're over 40, the risk of miscarriage is much higher, about 4 to 5 times higher than the 20-year-old. So all those things are really why age does matter. And therefore it's very important to counsel women, if you goal, and it's not for everybody, is to have a child later in life. Please be cognizant that at about 10 years before you go into menopause, the age is actually 10 years. So if your mother went into menopause at 52, at 42, your eggs start becoming really low quality. So it's about 10 years, because people come and say, oh, I have a period, it's regular, I'm 48, I should be able to conceive. No, it's not about having a regular period. It's about the quality of egg and the quantity, more so the quality.
The quality. And yet a lot more, it's interesting, the data that's coming out is showing there's a lot more, there's a rise in women in their 40s becoming moms. But I think that's got to do with societal, like, you know, I want to wait until I'm actually ready, not when everyone is telling me I'm ready. So we've been seeing, and maybe at some point you'll talk about the risks to that, but I think in the US, there was data that showed for the first time in a long time, it's either equal to or has outnumbered teen pregnancy.
Women in their 40s.
Choosing to have children. Doc, I wanted to ask you 2 questions before I forget. I was going to ask about the emotional and medical reality of this journey, because sometimes online people will be like, oh, it looks like it's just, you know, she just did 2 cycles and she was good. She's even like, nope. But before that, is there, what is it that wakes you up every day to say, I love what I do because of? What is it that you love about being able to, I hit you in the emotions.
Like the smile?
No, I love what I do.
Like where does that, what is it about sort of like catering to this group of people that keeps you motivated and inspired?
I think our purpose is big. I mean, when you see a woman or a couple who have struggled for 9 years, 10 years, finally hold that little person in their hands. I mean, there is no greater feeling. Not that I did anything, because blessings come from above, but because I assisted, I mean, it's an amazing feeling. And that's why I wake up every day. It's not smooth. There are a lot of times I say, I'm sorry it didn't work, because IVF is not 100%. The fertility treatments are not 100%. But in the moments that they do work, I think it is priceless to see how it changes a couple, how it changes a family. I've had grandmothers come and hug me into my office, literally visit my offices to hug me. I mean, people come and cry as we're doing the scans. I mean, and And I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to help people see the fruits of their womb. It's and I know I'm not sure everyone has children here, but when you see that's why I said I'm not sure. But children are, I mean, it's a wonderful blessing to be able to help people.
Okay.
Sorry, Jenna, just before you go into it, I realized we hadn't talked about male infertility and its causes. Did we skip over?
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because one of the questions I had was male-related infertility, but yes, we covered.
So
female.
we did the 50. We didn't do the other 50.
Yeah. So the male aspect is there. We're seeing, as I said, 50% of male having low sperm count. So there are different categories. You could have low sperm count, you could have sperm that are not moving as fast and they need to move fast to get to the egg. And then you could have sperm that are abnormal in terms of their morphology. They don't have a sperm. If you remember your biology, there's a head, there's a neck piece, there's a tail. So it could have some abnormalities in that aspect, and therefore the DNA is not right. So most common causes, some are genetic. There's some people who are just not born with any sperm, and there's really nothing we can do about it. But there are causes, especially now with the environment, smoking, the shisha, the vaping, any toxin. Sperms, as I said, are produced every day, and therefore they're very sensitive to toxins. So anything that you ingest and put into your body also affects your sperm quality, your sperm numbers, and the way they actually move. So that's one factor that we're seeing on the rise. The beauty about this, if I can just say, is that with men, we can correct a lot of these causes. If we stop these smoking, drinking, eating right, the obesity, exercise, and we actually see an improvement in the sperm quality. So for men, it's actually really good. But there are other causes as well. And I always say this when I have a chance, because we need to, anytime a baby is born, a male baby is born, it's really important to make sure that both the testicles are down, because that's one of the most common reasons that we have male infertility. When men are born with undescended testis, it goes unnoticed. The testis loves cooler regions, and that's why they're outside the body, and that's why when it's warmer you see they hang lower, because they're trying to run away from heat. So if the testis is in the body for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it's really, the production of sperm reduces, and to be honest, for some men we will not have sperm. Yet it would be a condition that would have been corrected at birth. So it's really important to that undescended testis. So for anybody having a little boy, please make sure that the testes are outside. Make sure they're examined by a pediatrician at birth, because that's one of the factors. And then there are other factors. The infections, mumps, tuberculosis could affect and the testis, and also cause low sperm production. And then there's accidents, so sports. There's something called testicular torsion that happens a lot in the sports age in teenagehood, and makes the vessels or the testis get black blood supply, because it has tossed around the vessels. And this may make someone lose a testis if it's not recognized early.
Gosh, I don't know how much of this is known, especially like
Very
even what
little.
you've just said about sports. Eric, just before you come in, I know later, maybe after the break, is when we'll talk about that emotional and medical journey, but somebody might be listening and saying, how can I heighten my chances of being able to conceive? So you've said, for example, for men, a lot of the time it can be rectified.
Yes, some of the time.
Some of the time. For women, is it, somebody who maybe has an inkling that I may be struggling to conceive, is there anything that they can do?
I'll go back to age, which is real. So of course, if you're coming when you're in the late 40s, sometimes there's nothing we can do, to be honest. The quality is gone. But for younger women, and that's why I am now preaching, what is your life goal? Because you need to be very clear. There are people who don't want children, there are people who want children. So if you know that you want children, and by say 32 to 35, you don't have a child, and there's nobody in the horizon that you can picture having children with or settling down with, then you need to make decisions. I'm going to go on the extreme, should I think about freezing my eggs? That's number one. But on the other side, if you are looking and you're with a partner, and I think going to see a fertility specialist after 1 year of trying to conceive is important. Please don't wait too long, because there are some problems that are very easy to correct. There's some hormonal issues. We'll just give you some hormonal treatments and we're done. There's also lifestyles. Some people, like there's something called polycystic ovarian syndrome, where you just have irregular periods. For some patients, we just need to lose a bit of weight, about 10 kilos or 5% of your body weight, and we start ovulating right and we get pregnant. So there are things that can be done that are very simple, but this is age related. The younger you are, the better chances you have. So I think for me, it starts with, what is your goal? Do you want 1 child? Do you want no children? Do you want 3 children? Then you need to start thinking ahead.
Okay.
I wanted to ask about some of these, what you call the common causes of male infertility. You said genetic.
Yep.
Born without sperm.
Yeah.
But you also told us earlier that men produce sperm on a daily basis.
Yes.
So you are born with 0, but you can't produce. So is it the born without ability to produce?
Yes, born without the ability to produce sperm.
So what's missing there?
Hormonal aspects or genetic aspects. You didn't get the gene that allowed you to have sperm.
And there's no therapy for this?
No, unfortunately for that, no. If you're born with azoospermia and it's a genetic issue, there's nothing we can do to help you produce sperm.
Okay. And the only way to tell this is by going for tests?
Yes.
Okay. The other one was where you said the sperm can be degraded in terms of numbers, quality, and all by toxins, by what somebody is ingesting and all.
Yeah.
So is it that because you're smoking regularly, then you're also impairing your ability to produce, or because you're smoking regularly, you're affecting what has already been produced? I mean, which is which? What's going on here?
It's both. Remember, for you guys, you produce every second. Yeah. The life cycle of sperm is actually 90 days. It means it's produced, it matures by 72 days, it's matured, 18 days, it's left the system by an ejaculate. Now, in that process, because it's a very fast process, toxins, it requires a lot of energy. So if you're smoking daily, and of course, the number of cigarettes and everything that you do increases the likelihood that you'll have problems. So there's that aspect, but there's actually, and it's because there's a stage of growth that is required. So the toxin affect the stage of growth.
All right.
I hope that's clear.
Yes, we're in conversation with Dr. Wanjiru Ndegwa, IVF and fertility specialist. We're going into a break. It's coming up to 8:30. We'll come back and continue this conversation
tomorrow.
Absolutely. A few comments here. Priscilla Asamba says, I love her. That's Daktari. My doctor, for all my 3 babies. She's so passionate, authentic. God bless you for working with us. Yeah. Anthony Mbogwa, Eric, I like that this was directed to Eric. He's like, you can't ask the women on the panel. How can male infertility be genetic? How was the person born if the dad had tissues? And I think that was already answered. And then Jules Muya.
Genetic, not hereditary. There's a difference here.
Yes, genetic, not that's a good differentiator.
Yeah.
Can you freeze eggs after TL?
That's tubal ligation.
The allegation. Okay, those are some comments, and I know we wanted to get into, what it takes to be a specialist and the tech facilitated, solutions. So maybe that will come in at some point.
But maybe that question of, can you freeze eggs after tubal ligation?
Yes, you can. I mean, tubes, eggs, ovaries are on the side, they're not connected. So yes, you can freeze your tubes after a tubal ligation.
All right.
Okay, and then when you want to have a baby, do you go and untie the tubes?
No.
Or you don't have to?
We have the gametes.
There's space
so we
elsewhere.
just put them. We just put them in the womb. Yes.
Direct.
And that's where now that fertility happens.
Yes.
External fertility
Yes,
happening.
the external aspect.
You, Daktari, are an expert on fertility.
Yes.
Right? You're a doctor. Like we asked the last time when we had an expert on cosmetics
surgery.
Procedures, yes.
So walk us through it. What have you studied and when?
So in the medical aspect, I went for my undergraduate. When?
Not necessarily when. Like how long?
Yeah, so for 5 years of undergraduate, and then a year of internship, a year of work after internship, then went back for my master's in obstetrics and gynecology for 4 years, and then you have to have 2 years of subspecialty training, or of doing the work actually. It's called registration before you're registered as a gynecologist, and then now, for me, I did 2 years of reproductive medicine and endocrinology.
Those are many. 5 plus 1 plus 1 plus 5 plus 2 plus...
No, plus, I think...
I don't even know.
Yeah.
Maybe about
5
15.
undergrad, 1 internship,
Internships,
so
yes.
6 years
Yeah.
to be registered as a doctor.
Yes.
Then you practice for a year, 7 years.
7.
Then you go back to school for your master's.
For 4
For 4 years.
That's
OBGYN.
That's
4
11.
years, that's 11.
Then you
You
register.
must practice
Yes.
as a registrar for 2 years.
Yeah.
That's
13 years.
Yeah.
Then you went back to school now for the subspecialty
For 2 years.
for 2 years.
That's
15
15.
years.
15 years
Yes, 15.
of just work and experience.
Yes.
And then that's where now you became a fertility expert.
No, you're not an expert yet. You're just a fertility specialist.
There
I
you
think
go.
you become an expert with experience.
With time.
So experience gives you expertise.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, given that amount of work, there's a lot of quack. Do we go there, or do we start with the process? Let's start with let's start with the quacks.
What is this
With the
specialty?
medical.
What is this subspecialty that we want to study then on fertility?
What is the subspecialty?
Yes.
So I think the speciality is one, being able to diagnose a patient who has infertility and what the reason for their fertility problems are, and then being able to handle the technology or actually impart the technology so that we then have a live birth. So that is
Okay.
the expertise.
Does there have to be technology at that particular stage as a solution? Is a solution necessarily technology?
No. So the solution is not technology, but it has to have at least a history where we take medical, we take their medical concerns and then give them a diagnosis. Because with a diagnosis, then you don't know what you're doing. And then maybe some people, we just say, okay, reassure, go and have your babies, try for this long. If it doesn't happen, then maybe come back. And then for others, then yes, we must do active treatments.
Okay. I was thinking about quacks. Where can I find a list of registered specialists, fertility specialists in Kenya that I know I can count on, as opposed to what we were joking about, which is someone who went for a workshop and then writes fertility specialist on their door.
Or they give somebody advice and they conceived.
Yeah.
And they decided I'm an expert.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now, there's a lot of regulation which is happening, so that's really good. In fact, our clinic was visited by members of the board and medical experts just to see that we are at par. So I am very pleased about that, because they're asking also about your qualifications and should you be practicing. But for the person who is looking for a fertility specialist or looking for help, if you go to the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Council website, there is a list of 1 doctors, and then there's a list of people who have a subspecialty in infertility, and it's called reproductive endocrinology and infertility. So you can get that information on the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important to just direct people there.
Yeah.
Let's now go into the cycles and the treatment, like how IVF works, how many cycles one does before they're able to conceive, that kind of, the journey.
Yeah. So,
And maybe just what is IVF for the basics, because we're assuming that we know.
Yeah. So one, there are different modalities of treatment. It is not, so infertility or trying to conceive does not equal to IVF. Right. There are patients who even do IVF and then later conceive naturally. So conception is extremely gray. I say it's divine. We can only try and assist, but when the maker says you'll have your baby, that's when you're going to have your baby. So just to get to what IVF is called in vitro fertilization. So in vitro means outside the body. So what happens in an IVF cycle is we get your gametes. So the female eggs are removed. The male gives us his sperm. We put them together. So IVF is actually just putting them together in a petri dish and allowing them to meet each other. So that's IVF. Then there's something called IVF ICSI, where we actually take one sperm, and insert it into the egg, into the cytoplasm of the egg or the center of the egg. That's ICSI. So it's intracytoplasmic sperm injection, and that assists, especially where male factor is poor. Like we have very few, the motility, they're not moving. So that's for that aspect. So those are the two modalities that happen inside the lab. Now, once these gametes fertilize, because we do not control fertilization, we can put them together, we can actually inject, and fertilization doesn't occur because there's a cascade of chemicals and functions that they have to have innately. We allow them to stay in a culture media in an environment that is similar to what would have been in the tube, and grow for 3 to up to 7 days right now. And then once we are satisfied with how they've divided, we are able either to put them back into your womb. So we don't attach, we just put them on a catheter and place them in the middle of the womb, or we freeze them if you're not having a fresh cycle. Now, what happens before this phase for us to actually get the eggs from the female is that she does have injections for 10 to 12 days on her lower belly. And what these injections have are hormones that are allowing more eggs to grow. Because with IVF, what we're trying to do is have many eggs and get the best quality to grow and divide, and therefore put the best quality of embryo back into your womb. So we need lots. Every month a woman ovulates 1 egg. So we're actually giving the hormones FSH, or follicle stimulating hormone, and luteinizing hormone that your brain actually gives, but we're giving it in large amounts so that we don't grow 1 egg, but we grow many eggs. And then at the end of the 10 to 12 days, we actually pull out the eggs. We do not cut, there's no abdominal incision. We go through the birth canal or the vaginal route with a needle, puncture the very delicate skin, not painful to be honest, and then we suck the fluid that has the ova, and that is now transferred to the lab, and then now the IVF process
And that's
starts.
1 cycle? Is that what you would define
That's
as a
one cycle? Yes, that's 1 cycle.
Yeah, and then how soon do you know whether or not it's successful? Because then that informs another cycle.
Yes, so once we put the embryos back, it's called an embryo transfer, into your womb, we allow, depends whether we did a day 3 transfer or the embryos were day 3 or day 5, but roughly 11 to 9 days after that process, we know whether you're successful, and we do a blood pregnancy test to determine that.
Okay.
So that's a cycle. The first thing that comes to mind when you hear about IVF often is the cost. How much would 1 cycle of IVF cost?
Okay, so cycles are anything between 400 and 700,000, but it also depends on what you're doing, because cycles are not the same, medication is not the same, and that's why it's a range, because there's some people who use very little medication, and there are some people who need lots of more medication to get their eggs to grow.
And statistically, what's the success rate of IVF cycles?
Honestly, statistically, it's 30 to 40%. And that's taking everybody from the 20-year-old who comes, which is, maybe the 28-year-old who comes, to the 45-year-old. The older you are, the lower the success rates of IVF. So this is,
Okay.
broad.
Does multiple cycles increase the chance of success?
It depends. As I said, we need to get to the diagnosis. Because if you are, and I'm not bashing older women, I'm also in that age range, but if you're 45 and the eggs are poor quality, if I do 7 cycles, it does not assure you that we will get a pregnancy. However, if you are 28, you have really good quality embryos. To be honest, a lot of time 1 cycle, and I have patients 1 cycle and they have 3 to 4 children off the 1 cycle. So age, again, I cannot stress age more.
How long does the body need to heal before the next cycle? Is it, how long does it take?
So I said in the beginning that chronic stress is one of the factors that I really, so for me, emotions count a lot. I will not start an IVF cycle if you're emotional, because it won't work. We need to be at the point where we've accepted that this cycle didn't work, if it didn't work, and we have to move on, and maybe counseling has to be given so that you can get back to, okay, I'm ready to go at this again, because 2 failed cycles, 3 failed cycles is really painful. So your body physiologically is ready the next cycle, to be honest, as long as you didn't have too many. So you can skip a month and start the next month for an IVF cycle, but emotionally you really need to be attuned to, because this is really, it's a fight sometimes to get to where we want.
I'm sorry. I'm just over the last maybe year realizing how big a factor stress is for women's health has been very eye-opening.
It's a big one.
It's a really big one.
400,000 to 700,000 Kenya shillings per cycle.
Yeah.
With a 40 at best % chance. Explain this high amount of money.
Okay. Can I explain first? The 40% is age-related.
Okay.
To be honest, if you're 28 years, and that's why the diagnosis is especially important. You're 28 years or maybe 30, 35, under 35, tubes are blocked. That's the only problem. You've come because your tubes. Your percentage of chance is 99, to be honest. You are more likely to succeed. So this is arranged depending on what your problem is.
Okay.
And lumping everybody together. Now the 400 to 700 is, we don't have anything in our own country. We import every single thing. And that's why, like in Egypt, the cost of IVF is I think the highest cost would be 400 because they manufacture the medication, they manufacture the needles. I mean, they have expertise. So it's not that expensive when we're manufacturing. In Kenya, we're buying the medication. A dose of medication for IVF could range between 200 and 300 if we're using trademark medication.
Right.
That's just the medication. The needle we use to extract the eggs is 20,000 shillings. The needle, which we throw away.
Yeah.
I mean, the needle we put back is also about 10,000. So the costs, the lab reagents, what we use in the lab they're imported. They're perishable, very highly perishable. They're quite expensive. So the cost is really,
It's incredibly high.
It's incredibly high, and also because we import everything.
We're importing everything.
Yeah.
Kenya has pharmaceutical manufacturing capacity.
It does.
Well, we have some pharmaceutical manufacturers. Are you saying we're not able to even manufacture needles in Kenya?
We aren't.
And syringes?
We're not.
So there's no one who's manufacturing syringes in Kenya?
That I know, no.
Needles?
No.
None?
None.
Well, you are importing everything, of course. Not even hand gloves.
Gauze or
and
gauze.
Even gauze, no, but gloves, yes. Yes.
We don't have any manufacturer of gloves in Kenya?
I don't think so. We import gloves. But seriously.
Where's that gap? Where do you think the failure of that gap is?
I wish I had an answer.
Yep.
None.
I wanted to ask about faith, navigating faith concerns. I don't know if that's come up. It's a bit, anyway, everyone is different, because I've seen a lot of conservative groups talk about it not being of faith. I try to understand why, but what have you navigated or seen with patients who are trying to navigate that reality of their faith vis-a-vis, IVF?
Yeah, this is a question that I've had since I started. And even when I went for my training, came back, I got stuck a little, because I'm like, am I doing God's will? Am I doing what is right in His sight? I do feel that the practice of infertility has a lot of ethical concerns, and there are a lot of places where you can go the wrong way. And I don't think... my personal faith, but I allow patients, and this is why I will never tell a patient you have to do this. You have to soul search. You have to be okay with what you're doing. If you want to go into an IVF cycle, you have to be okay with it in terms of your religion, your faith, and what you believe. But to be honest, implantation is divine. Like, you can have a grade 5 AA embryo. That's the best quality of embryo. Put it on a uterus, and it doesn't implant. And you're like, what happened here? And it's not, and that's why I think for me, the profession has allowed me to understand that I'm not God. I cannot give you a baby. I cannot reproduce. The divinity of whether that embryo attaches on your womb. Remember that in Psalms, I met in my mother's womb is really divine. We don't have the power, and I don't think we'll ever have the power to make an embryo stick. So are we doing God's will? I do. I mean, there are a lot of people who have benefited from what we do. However, there are ethics that we need to be ethical, and that's where the difference comes in on who is, or where you go for your practice. There are people who don't have a problem doing anything, and there are people who are not going to do things because they're not right. And
what are some of those actually ethical concerns? Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to avoid. So I think the ethical concerns are more in terms of gametes, gamete donation, because I have, and I'm not, people are different. I have had people come and say, I don't want my husband to know that we're using the gametes that are not mine. I've had male come and say, okay, don't tell her. You see, those are ethical.
What are those though? I mean, what's gametes?
Eggs or sperm.
So somebody comes and says we're using somebody else's eggs,
yes,
without the knowledge of the partner.
Of the partner.
Not just ethical, but legal. Is that?
Well, I don't know if it's legal, but because how many men have children out there, but we're not going there. But in terms of as a clinic and as somebody it's lying. What are we doing? Yeah. So some of those things we refuse to do, but
people
so
will
those
ask.
are ethical concerns.
Let's get into the legislation. Oh, Eric, you had a question. I wanted to get into the
It
legislation.
was on that. So just going on to the legislation bit of it.
Yeah.
Is there any law that governs IVF and other such assisted reproduction in Kenya?
So we're fortunate to have the law. The Senate has passed it, so now it's sitting, waiting for. No, sorry, the Senate. It's at the Senate and public participation. We are hoping that this can address a lot of the issues. I've read it. I'm actually part of a panel that have submitted some ideas on it. It has a lot of things that are lacking, but I do think the main reason that this law was brought up from what we see is the surrogacy aspect of the law. And of course, in the media, you've seen a lot coming up about surrogacy, and there's been a lot of attention there. So I do feel that it is time that it is legislated, that we do know, because it's been a gray area. We should know, okay, are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the wrong thing? How should we address surrogacy? So that's the real aspect of this law.
That's for surrogacy. Does something exist for IVF?
A little for IVF, not a lot. The bill actually, it is really strongly on surrogacy and the children who are coming and the rights of the surrogate and the intended parents. IVF, they have regulated us in terms of, or they're trying to regulate if something is done wrong, and regulating the clinic. So that's also good. Okay. But not a lot in terms of the technology. Yeah.
Okay. Quick, this is just, I'm trying to remember how the phrase was used or in what context, but it was just in an article or on Twitter somewhere. And it was it seemed like a very big statement that the biggest determinant of the quality of a pregnancy is the quality of sperm. True, false?
No. I would not say quality of sperm, I'd say quality of egg, unfortunately.
Quality of egg.
Okay.
All right.
Is there a link between infertility or fertility and miscarriages?
Yes, yeah. So yes, we see a lot of patients also who have had recurrent miscarriages. I mean, if you're having 3, 4, 5 miscarriages, that does mean that we're not going to get a live birth, and we're not getting to live birth, and therefore, yes, the type of patients we also see at our clinics. Some need IVF, some need just assistance in supporting the early stage of pregnancy. Okay. Yeah.
My final question is on advocacy. Our next guest is somebody who's actually, gone through this process. Nice. But it's costly, like you've told us.
Very.
It's costly emotionally, it's costly financially, up to that journey. As an experienced practitioner in this space, what do you think needs to happen? One, to make it more accessible to more people who need it.
As I said, I think we need to manufacture. We need to do what we need to do and get. I mean, it's not hard to have these things manufactured here. I don't say government lobbying. I gave up on on that. I honestly think that we as people and as people who have business minds can do this for ourselves if we just, if we just did.
A bit of feedback.
Yes.
Home 5262 says, good morning, Fixers. I have a niece who has never had her periods and she's now heading to her mid-30s. Hospitals keep giving her pills. What can she do?
I think she needs to be seen, by a doctor, because she needs to be examined. Is it that she doesn't have a womb? Is it that her womb is rudimentary, the genetic aspects that could make that happen, or is it a hormonal issue? So she really needs to be seen by a specialist, probably, who would be able to determine what the reason is.
Okay. Lenny de Steve, another compliment, says, I now get why it's expensive, 15 years and counting, for a specialist to come out with joyful results. Thank you, Daktari. You're the doctor to two friends I have. Okay. Ukuna, you have a lot of your patients and their friends in the comments.
I think, as a final short, how do we erase the stigma around IVF? Because I'm sure it's something that exists. You've alluded to it. You've talked about societal pressures, etc. But how do we get people to understand that it's a very personal journey? I feel like there's still a lot of stigma around assisted, conception.
Yeah, I think everyone, and even now where we are, everyone wants natural. Everyone is about doing everything naturally. And that's okay if it works naturally for you. But a lot of people do struggle to get pregnant, and therefore we're not doing unnatural things. We are assisting your body to actually get to the natural phase, because we don't support the pregnancy till the end. We support it for a couple of months, and your body takes over. So IVF in itself is not unnatural, because that's what we hear. It's unnatural. We don't want to just do natural things, light things, but there's some people who will need it. So I think the stigma around fertility, I want to say that it's not a failure on your system. It's not a failure on you as a couple. There's a lot of stress coming. I have patients who say, my husband was brought for a range of women by somebody because he's wealthy. He needs to move on, and we're not having kids. And I want to tell the people around patients or people who haven't got children that they are carrying heavy emotional burdens. And therefore, I think the stress and the pull and the push, I think some people should just give them grace, because they didn't ask for what they are having. If I have endometriosis per se, and it blocked my tubes, I didn't ask for endometriosis, it came. I know, yes, you want me to procreate, but I have no. And for male, I sometimes feel so much pain for the males, because I've seen literally men shedding tears when they get the diagnosis. They didn't ask for it, it came. So really, the pressure around fertility is a lot, and I think we should just extend some grace.
Thank you for that. Honestly, that was the politest way to say mind your business and let's I had other choice words, but you did it really, really well. Diplomatically. And thank you for what you do. That's Dr. Wanjiru Ndegwa, an IVF and fertility specialist. In the next hour, we're joined by Pamela Maktolo, a mother of two. She'll share her journey with us. It's coming up to 9 a.m.